Okay. We go over the agenda. Um, First topic is all about what exactly is the chief judge's team and who is it comprised of? Of course, most of you know that's the judges, timers, ballot counters. We're going to talk about their eligibility requirements. Then we're going to go straight into how judging works and how it's different now that everything's in person. TMI issued a rule several months ago saying that they're no longer going to accept things like Google Forms, Google Ballots, or anything like that. So we're all going back to the old paper forms that we used before the pandemic. So we're going to review all of that good stuff. Now, you've probably seen this table before, um, but we're going to go over some of these positions and how they relate to each other. Um, those of you who are still doing your club contests, a lot of this is um, you see these footnotes next to the numbers in the first column for club contests. Those footnotes mean that you should strive for that number of people, but if it's not practical, you don't need to. However, once you move to the area level or division level, you need to hit those minimums. For example, you must have two timers and two ballot counters.
Hands also two-sided arms.
Yeah. So
Yes, above
there's
two.
one yeah, there's one critical difference this year. When you look at the sergeant at arms, this table shows, it acts like you only need one sergeant at arms, but that's because um, they don't treat it the same way we do. We would ideally like to have three sergeant at arms at the area level and up. And the reason for that, we mentioned this before, but ideally you should have one sergeant at arms who, monitors the door into the contest so that people do not enter the room while a contestant is speaking. Then the second sergeant of arms would be sitting with the evaluators in the breakout room, or not breakout room, but another room in the building. And then the third sergeant of arms would be walking with the evaluator to, accompanying them back to the main room. So at the area level and up, it's a good idea to have three sergeant at arms if you have an evaluation contest. Now, one of the questions I often get is that there always seems to be a lot of confusion about what is the difference between what a chief judge does versus a contest chair. Um, and most of this is common sense, but we'll go over this. The contest chair is the one who pulls together all the team, and they work with the contestants directly. They verify their eligibility. They give those eligibility forms to them. They collect any biographical information that they're going to use in the interviews. And they're the ones who can conduct the contestant briefing, not the chief judge. They also conduct the drawing for the speaker order. They handle any promotions or, you know, publicizing the contest, sending out invites, and they coordinate any necessary awards or medals. And we'll talk about how to get those later. In contrast, the chief judge does totally different tasks. They ensure that their particular team which is comprised of the timers, ballot counters, and the tiebreaker, that those people are prepared and trained, and they supervise the ballot counting process. They inform the contest chair of the results, and then they fill out a form that informs the next level of contest, who the winners are. So if you're an area director, your chief judge at the area contest needs to notify the division director or the division contest chair, what those results are, because otherwise, people just spend a lot of time trying to find that information. It should have been given to them. And there are forms for each of these tasks. So imagine that, all of those forms in one download. Check this out. You see this list. This is all for the speech contest. And there's another duplicate list of these forms for the evaluation contest. Isn't that awesome? I mean, just with one download from the TMI website, you get all of these. And we'll look at a couple of them. So here are the links to get those forms. Um, like I say, they're very similar for the speech and the evaluation kits, just with a couple differences.
Hans, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna ask what Kate asked in chat. Can you either put these in the chat or are you sharing these slides with us later?
Yes, both.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
In fact, I mean, you can simply Google um, the words Toastmasters speech contest kit and you get it right there. So, but yeah, I'll send you this as
Oh,
well.
it's on the Toastmasters website. That's what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
So they allow you to purchase the forms in printed form, but that's kind of silly. You can just get a free download and print them yourself. Okay. So we mentioned a couple minutes ago that the contest chair is the person who does the contestant briefing. I've been to a lot of contests where the chief judge did it, but really that's not how it's supposed to work. The contest chair is supposed to do this. The first task of that briefing is to ensure that everyone understands the rules, and that includes things like, okay, as soon as they utter the first verbal or nonverbal gesture, their speech has started, timing has started. Number two, they're not allowed to mention some other contestant or even just say, hey, that was a great speech, because if they do, they will be disqualified. And finally, there are time minimums as well as maximums. For example, a speech must be at least 4 minutes and 30 seconds, and an evaluation must be at least 1.5 minutes. Additionally, a speech must be substantially original. So if you have any quoted or referenced material in there, it shouldn't account for more than 25% of that speech. Additionally, the speaker should say where they got that material or who the author was. And if they don't, that can raise the potential of a protest, which we'll talk about later. Now, the second bullet point there says that only for club contests, if your club contest is remote or hybrid, you should really think about what will happen if there's a technical malfunction. In the era of the pandemic, we had a procedure there, and we'll look at that in a few minutes. It's in the appendix, but since Most clubs are going to be in person now. I'll just cover that if there's enough time later. Let's move into another responsibility of the contest chair, which is checking the contestant eligibility. Now, the chief judge can help with this if they want to, but it's according to the rule book, it's the contest chair's responsibility. What you can do to check eligibility is that anyone who you can use the TMI website. So anyone who is a club officer or a district leader can go to the TMI website and go to Leadership Central. You have to log in first, but go to Leadership Central and then use the eligibility assistant. That will help determine if a contestant is a paid member of a club that's in good standing and is not a current district leader, okay? Because a contestant cannot be a current district leader like an area director or something like that. Additionally, if they're a speech contestant, they must have level 2 or a DTM. And you can check that. You could get help from we can print out a member list, which includes their educational achievement, or you can get help from TMI. There's the speech contest team's email at the bottom of the slide. Now, what about the chief judge's briefing? That's a totally separate briefing. Yes, Kate.
Yeah, so that when you go into the roster, the membership roster, it only shows the most recent award that's been processed by TI. So if I got a level 2 recently, but I have achieved a level 5, it'll show the level 2. What you have to do is go into Basecamp Manager, the VPE of the person's club, or if you have the member number, you can ask TI to do it. But you have to go in there and the Basecamp Manager is showing the highest level achieved now. But don't rely on the membership roster. It'll only show the most recent award processed. I mean,
Oh, okay, so you're saying that there would be a lag time between Basecamp and the roster, right?
Right. The roster only shows the most recent processed. And same with your educational awards and your admin reports in Club Central. So you really have to go into Basecamp Manager now or have TI verify if you have the member number.
Hans, I think what Kate is saying, I mean, I think it's a little different from the way you restated it. Like I have 2 completed paths, definitely over level 2. But if I'm only at a level 1 or 2, haven't completed a level 2 on my most recent path, that's the one that's going to be reporting. The one you're working on most recently.
Yeah.
So it's a little deceptive because if you looked at mine and it said level 1 or level not even quite a level 2, that discounts that I already have 2 paths completed. I'm definitely above the minimum level.
Right. So at this level of contest, the club should have sent you the results of the club contest with the member number. So you can use that to get to TI and ask them to verify, unless the VPE can show you the Basecamp Manager report.
Like if they can take a screenshot or just if they're sitting right there with you, they could show their screen. But yeah,
Exactly.
so does anyone have any idea how long it takes for, let's say the VPE submits the award on both Basecamp and Club Central, or they go into the website and take care of that.
Processed immediately. Any awards are processed immediately. I haven't seen any delay in that.
So TMI would know it, like if TMI would be able to verify it, but it would still not show up on the roster for
right. It
maybe
won't
a couple
if I
weeks.
earned a level 5 2 years ago, the roster and I earned a level 3 this
Oh,
year.
I see what you're
Only
saying.
got-
Like you could be on two different paths and it would show the highest one that you,
It showed the most recent processed on the membership roster.
okay.
But now this base camp manager, since they revised it, will show your highest level of pathways completions, which is a good thing, I think, because it doesn't, so you don't have to go through that. You can ask the VPE to verify it,
Mm-hmm.
or
Okay.
any club officer
thanks.
can get to base camp now. So
Exactly. Great. Thanks for that clarification. That really helps. Everyone else, let me know if there's any questions about how to access that, as there were some recent changes about how base camp is structured and how the VP can get in there and handle those approvals. Now, back to moving on to the chief judge, they have different responsibilities when it comes to briefing people. They're technically only in charge of briefing their team, which includes the judges, timers, ballot counters. Now, there's a bunch of paperwork that we're going to look at, including, of course, the ballots. Well, those papers should ideally be sent to your team members before the contest, a few days before the contest, so that they can just familiarize themselves with them. And you should also give them a list of contestants in the correct speaking order. You might not know the speaking order until the day of the contest, but it's always nice to send a text message, or just write it down, or maybe it's in the agenda, because it's nice to have the correct spelling and everything like that, and the correct order. You're also going to need to decide which of your two timers will be the one who displays the cards, while the other one is the one who runs the stopwatch and submits the report. There's a note at the bottom of the slide saying that, if you have a club contest, you at the club level, you're allowed to have a remote or hybrid contest. So I would recommend creating a WhatsApp or text message group for communication amongst your team. Additionally, you really want to understand the judges, make sure they understand how to use the ballots. For one thing, they should not be timing the contestants. We've seen that in the past where judges were making comments about someone going over time, but that's not something that we want them to track, because we don't want time to influence someone's vote. And finally, you want to make sure the ballot counters understand how to convert first, second, and third place votes into scores. For example, first place gets 3 points, while third place only gets 1 point. So speaking of the chief judge's team, the first person to talk about is, of course, the judges. Who can be a judge? At the area level on up, they must have been in Toastmasters for 6 months, and they must have level 2 or the first 6 speeches of the old, competent communicator manual. A lot of people ask me this question. They say, "Hey, can a contestant serve as a judge, or can they serve as a timer, whatever?" Well, here's the rule on that. If that contestant is still active, in other words, if they have not been eliminated yet, then they cannot serve as a judge in that same contest type, even if it's in a different district. So if they're a speech contestant, they cannot judge a speech contest, but they could judge an evaluation contest, and vice versa. And the point at the bottom says, that addresses other roles such as timers and sergeant of arms. contestants can serve in those roles as long as it's not at the contest that they're actually, that they're not competing at. I mean, that's pretty common sense, isn't it? Any questions about that? Okay. There is also a special rule that counts at the division and district levels. At those levels, a judge cannot belong to any club that a contestant belongs to. So I would recommend that you make a list of every club that your contestants and judge recruits belong to make sure there's no conflict. You can do this, for example, if you're a division director, the area level does not need to do this. But at the division level, I would recommend pulling a membership list off of TMI, off of the Leadership Central. But if you need help with that, just contact me. Because that list that you can pull, that spreadsheet, will tell you every single club that someone belongs to. So if someone belongs to 5 clubs, they will be listed 5 times in that report. One very important point, and it goes without saying, but please don't put the judges' names on the agenda or any other public material. Only the chief judge and the ballot counter should know who they are. Another important point, this kind of slips by unnoticed, but there's really a risk here when it comes to bias. We all have personal biases, depending on how we grew up as a person. Okay, but if you're a judge, you should ideally judge a speech based on its merit, not whether you agree with a speech or whether you feel empathy with a speaker's personal life story. So I would recommend that you, if you're the chief judge, please ask your judges not to consider any of the following factors. Their demographics, like their age, gender, etc., and whether the speaker went over time, or whether or not they agree with a speaker's opinion on something. And finally, whether or not they share a similar life struggle or goal or accomplishment. A speech should be judged on, its merits, the structure of the speech, the verbal and nonverbal style and all that kind of stuff. Now, getting into the actual judging process itself. As you know,
Hans, before you do that, can I ask a question?
sure.
If somebody is like a area director or a division director, can they be a judge, or are they also not able to participate as a judge?
Yes, they can.
They can. Okay.
So in fact, there's been cases in the past where division directors have asked all of their area directors to serve as a judge at their division contest. Is that an ideal situation? Well, it's up to someone's opinion, but it's been done before.
I thought they couldn't do it because they would be the judges might be member of a club that is competing in the contest.
Yeah, if in these days though, a lot of area directors are kind of like really scattered around. Or they might live in another state even. So, but yeah, to your point, if someone does actually attend one of those clubs, then yeah, they're certainly not eligible to be a judge.
Well, that's division and up.
At the division
area,
level,
right?
yeah.
The division, not at the area, right?
So,
Hans, once again, can an area director or divisional director, they can be a judge at another area, right? Another division, another area, not their own. Am I right? not their own area, some other area.
That's right. They can.
Some other.
But anybody can, yeah, right.
You're saying, can an area, one director serve in another director's contest?
Yeah, another area, nothing, not in his or her own jurisdiction, something.
Yeah. That's totally fine. Like I said, as long as they don't belong to any club that at the division level. But the other thing you want to keep in mind is that if you're inviting people to serve as judges and they happen to be within your same area or division, you really want to make sure, like, for example, if you're running an area contest and one of your judges happens to be from one of your clubs in your area, ideally you would want to balance it across the clubs in that area. So you would ideally try to find another judge from each of those other clubs in your area. And that way it's balanced. So
in fact, I thought there was a rule where if you had one judge from a club in the area, you had to get a judge from all the areas that were competing.
Well, it's the way it says is at the bottom, or where it says voting judges on this slide. So it's saying, for example, at an area contest, you need 5 ideally, but what it's really saying is that you should get 5 minimum, but if you have one from one of your clubs, you should get get one from your other clubs as well.
Right. Yeah.
So the way they word it is kind of confusing.
Yes.
For example, if you're an area that only has 4 clubs or 3 clubs,
right,
we're not telling you that it's fine to just get by with 3 judges. You really want to have 5 minimum.
Yeah.
You shouldn't just get one judge from each of your 3 clubs or 4 clubs and call it a day. You should really shoot for 5 minimum. I would actually recommend 6 or 7 because typically one of them doesn't show up or they have an emergency or something like that. Okay, so
right, but you can't have, so you've got 3 clubs and you need 5. You can't have 2 judges from one club and only one judge from another club. That has to be an equal number.
That's a perfect example. So if you only have 3 clubs in your area, I would recommend getting one from each of those 3 clubs and then 2 more from outside your area.
Exactly.
Because if you had, one from each club and then suddenly you got a second one from one of those clubs, then it's not balanced anymore.
Right.
So the moral of the story is if you're going to get any judges from within your area, try to keep it to just one per club, and make sure you hit each of those clubs. That way it's balanced. But we still want you to have a minimum of 5.
And then the other thing I remember back in the days when I actually had 6 clubs in my area is that if one of them was not participating in the contest, then you did not need to get a judge from that club.
Yeah, that's actually a good point because since they're not participating, it's not like they would have any influence. It's not like they would want to
Give
provide
right.
preferential treatment to their speaker. Well, they don't have any speakers, so they're
Right.
not going to do that.
Right.
At least theoretically. So, yeah, these are all good points. And I know this particular topic can get confusing. Does anyone have any other questions about how, what kind of people can be judges and how many you need? Notice that the division level requires 7 minimum. And like I say, I would shoot for 1 or 2 more, so 8 or 9.
So this is confusing because I thought you said that you couldn't have a judge in a division contest that came from the same club as one of the contestants.
Right.
And that means that you may not be able to get an equal number from each area because at least one area is going to have a contestant because one of the areas has to produce a contestant for your division, right?
Well, see, the question is, the question is not, does the club have someone? It's is that contestant or is that judge a member of the same club
Oh,
that
right.
contestant
And
is?
there are at least 3 or 4 clubs in an area. So we would just make sure that your judge wasn't from the particular area that has the contestant that's competing. Got it.
Well, yeah. What you would do is you would just print out a list of every club that people belong to,
Right,
and that's the way you can drill
right,
down and verify that.
right.
Um, because just because someone is an area director over these 4 clubs doesn't mean that they actually belong to any of
To
those
any of the
4
clubs,
clubs.
right.
So,
But then they're only needing to worry about the one contestant from their area that's going on to the division. They don't have to worry about all the contestants that competed in their area. If they're going to be a judge at the division level, there's only one person that's coming from their area. There's only one contestant coming from their area because they've already had their contest and they have the contestant.
Yeah, I think, Michelle,
exactly.
maybe where you're getting confused, it's about what club, not area. You can be
Yes.
a judge, right, at division if you're in their area, just not a member of their club.
Right, I understand that. I was
Oh,
just
okay.
trying to
Okay.
make the point
Okay,
that
gotcha.
that they only have to worry about one club from the whole area
Yeah,
because
yeah,
there's
yeah,
only
yeah.
one contestant that's going to be
Yeah,
going on to the division. That's
right.
all.
Yep.
Hans, question
Oh,
for you. Back
sure.
on the slide of judge eligibility. And for club contests, what is the criteria for judges? You
Okay,
see, I see the area. Yeah, I see the
right.
area.
For individual clubs, the deal is that we district officers, we don't actively monitor what the clubs are doing, but they, for example, to be honest, usually a club just gets judges from within its own club.
Yeah.
So that's what I've seen happen most often. Now they could pull judges in from another club if they wanted to, but technically most of the time I've seen them just pull their own members to do it.
I've
Yeah,
seen
and then
that. Yeah. Go on.
the level 2 requirements and the
Oh,
first 6 pages,
no,
that does not
that's
pertain
only
for the
for
area.
area.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. Okay, all right, thanks.
But
Because
if your club is highly competitive and you have a lot of people competing, you're better off getting judges from the outside because you don't want to be doing a beauty contest in your club. So just be aware of what the social dynamics is in your club. Like
Yeah.
some places, they only have 2 contestants. It's not a problem. But if you have, a good portion of your membership competing in the contest, then you do want judges from the outside.
Right, that's a good point. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions about number of judges or where judges come from? We were talking about what happens when, after everyone's finished speaking. You remember back in the old days, during the pandemic, we would provide 1 minute of silence between each speaker, and then, we used to call it 5 minutes after the last contestant, but technically it's supposed to be an unlimited period of time, because some judges could still be working And since contests are in person now, they're going to be sitting in their chair working. And when they're finished, they will raise their hand with their ballot. Okay. What they do is they tear off the bottom portion of the ballot, and the ballot counters will be walking around to collect them. So theoretically, it might take 6, 7, 8 minutes if one of the judges is still working, and that's okay. So like I say, the ballot counters are the ones who walk around to collect the ballots. Okay, because the judges are going to be just sitting in the audience. They're going to be members of the audience. Now, the chief judge is the one who collects the timer report and the tiebreaker ballot. The reason for that is because only the chief judge should know who the tiebreaker is. So they should discreetly collect it from that person. And they're going to be in the audience. They're going to be an audience member. There's no way to get around that, but just do it discreetly so that people don't really know who it is. And finally, once that's all done, once everything is collected, the chief judge and ballot counters go into a separate room to count the ballots. And I'm going to stop sharing this to show you an example of that. Let's see, here we go. So, does everyone recognize this form? This is what you're going to need to print out and bring to give to all your judges. It's that old school paper form, which includes several criteria that they use to evaluate the contestant. And you saw these during the pandemic, but they were in electronic format. Well, you have to use the paper versions now, and they're included in that download that I told you about before. So at the bottom of this form is where the judge tears it off. You remember that from several years ago. They tear off this slip of paper and give it to the ballot counter. So all they do is they write who is first place, who is second, who's third, and they sign it and give it to the ballot counter. Now, the second page of this ballot goes into some detail about what the criteria mean, and they can read that if they want. Any questions about that? Okay. I will now share the tiebreaker. The main difference with the tiebreaker ballot is, of course, oh, come on, where is it? Here it is. Okay. The main difference with a tiebreaker is that that person needs to rank every single contestant. Notice how there are 10 columns running across this form. That's because they provided room for up to 10 contestants. And you see here at the bottom of the form, that person needs to rank or fill in the names of all like first through 10th place. So it can be a demanding job if there's a lot of contestants. So it's an important role. You don't want to just hand it out lightly. And in a couple minutes, we'll talk about how to actually use the tiebreaker ballot in case there's a tie. So let's go back to the slides. Okay, so what happens, after the chief judge and the ballot counters go into the room, they're counting the ballots, and all of a sudden, there's a tie. So how is that handled? Looking at the third bullet point on this slide, it says tiebreaker's ballot is only used in case of a tie, obviously. What you would do is that, let's say there are two people who are tied. Well, the person who received the highest ranking on the tiebreaker's ballot is going to gain the contested place. And any other tied contestants will be ranked behind that person. So when you use the tiebreaker ballot, you are only considering the tied contestants. So if there are 2 or 3 people who are tied, you're using that ballot to, break the tie between just those people. Any questions on that?
Well, I wanted to point out that, say they are tied for second place and there are two, well, the person who has the higher rank on the tiebreaker will get the second place and the other contestant will get third place. And whoever had the ranking on the whole tally they would not get the third place. It would be the two people at second place. The second one would become third place. Does that make sense?
Wait, say that again. So
Okay.
you
So
said that
you have second place, you have a tie. And so you look at the ranking and you find out that contestant A is got the higher rank on the tiebreaker and contestant B has the second one. Well, contestant A becomes your second place winner and contestant B becomes your third place winner.
Well, yeah, but that's simply because on the original ballots, on the regular voting judges' ballots, they couldn't decide, like it came out to a tie, but for second place. So yeah, technically that third place person is actually kind of like the fourth place person.
Exactly. Right, because they actually have a lower ranking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to make that clear because, you get there and you say, now what do I do?
Hands, one second. The same issue can arise for the first if there is a tie at the first place.
Yes.
Same issue, same challenge.
So like that, if you had a tie for first place, the person who, you're breaking that tie, but the one who loses gets second place.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I have a question. So suppose we got right now on second place, we got a ties, contestant A and B on second place. But when I looked at the tiebreaker, contestant A, B on second place and contestant C on the actual judge's third place. So, but in when I look at the tiebreaker, in case second and third goes to like, okay, fifth or sixth, in tiebreakers place, I mean, the not on the second place or not on the third place, but they went into 5 or 6.
It doesn't matter. It's
Doesn't-
just who gets the higher rank. You don't have to decide what rank they are in where they ranked in the tiebreaker, just who came first and who came second. That's all
Okay.
you need to worry about.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, so here, well, this is what you give to the contest chair. Hold on, I'm gonna pull something else up. Well, no, this is fine. So, like I said, you're adding the scores on this form. So you have the name of the contestants on the top, name of the judges on the left, and you're converting their placements into points. So if the first judge said that the first contestant got first place, that would be 3 points because first
Right.
place equals 3 points.
Right.
Okay. And then you're basically adding those to the total at the bottom. Now, it's those totals which decide if there's a tie. So you could have 2 contestants that scored a total of 10 points or 20 points or whatever. And if that happens, you have to break that tie. Now, if 2 people tie for, well, you're only doing first, second, and third place here. So you're not gonna, if you have 10 contestants, it's not, you're not gonna run into a situation where there's a tie for 4th place or 5th place because only
You're
the
not-
only the
yeah.
tiebreaker even looks beyond 3rd place anyway. So it should be pretty simple. This form, what you do is it provides all that space for where you total the points. And then at the bottom of the form, it's simply saying, okay, let's enter the winners' names. We're going to provide this to the contest chair. But what you do before that happens is you convert that into a more simple form for the contest chair. So let me show you that form right here. That is called the contest results form, which is right here. This is provided to the contest chair. So if you are the chief judge and you just finished up everything with your ballot counters, you're going to fill out this form, which simply says, first of all, yes or no, were there any time disqualifications? If there were, you just check yes. You don't need to identify who that person was. And all you do is you write in the first, second, and third place. And you give it to the contest chair. So real simple. This is a way to avoid the clutter, because the contest chair does not need to see the points or the calculations or anything like that. So again, this is something that you should print out and bring with you.
Hans, in that just now what you showed, if there are 3 contestants and there is 1 disqualification, so basically you'll have 1 first and 1 second, no third place, right?
So if there's only 3 contestants?
And one is disqualified for some, no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then you'll have only.
But what you would do, the contest chair would say, yes, there was a disqualification, and therefore we only have 2 winners, first and second place. Does that make sense?
So Hans, for the area contest, we are giving only first and second places, right? Not the third place.
Well, no, it depends on how many contestants you have. So if you only have 2 contestants, there's only first and second. Now, if you have 3 or 4 or 5 contestants, then you have first, second, and third.
So I just attended AD meeting with Sally, and she said for the speech contest, she's going to send us only 2 medals for the first place and the second place for the area contest. But for the division, there are going to be 3 winners, first, second, and third.
You mean,
Well,
they're going to get awards? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think she may be talking about just the awards. She's not saying that all of those people would be sent to the next level, is she?
No, no.
Okay. Yeah, because we're from the area to the division level, only the first place contestant advances.
Yeah, and the second place would be a backup if first place.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
And the third place would be a backup if the second place person can't make it. So you do want to record who the first, second, and third winners are if you have 3 contestants or more.
Exactly. And there's another form that allows you to do exactly that. It's a notification form that the chief judge uses to notify the division director or the division contest chair of who was first, second, and third in the area contest. And so, Sri, what you were describing is the awards and medals, I think. So you're saying that Sally was deciding how many medals to purchase. Is that what it was?
Yeah, and she said for area contest, she's going to give us only 2. So I thought we should recognize 3, but then award only the first and second place winners.
Well, that kind of makes sense because a lot of areas are going to be small, or I mean, area contests are going to be small with only 2 people anyway.
Yes, and also, as Hans, you remember, I did the numbers on how much it would cost for medals, so we really can only afford the first 2 at the area, the district.
Okay.
Okay.
Because if you provide any medals at all, they have to be official Toastmasters
That's
ones,
right.
unfortunately.
Yep.
And unless you just want to have a totally blank medal without the word Toastmasters on it, which would be kind of silly. But yeah, TMI has decided that it's a copyright infringement if you try to
Get
use
other medals.
Yeah, if you try to use the word Toastmasters without purchasing it from them, they don't like that, obviously.
Hans, can I add something? The first winner for the speech contest and the evaluation contest goes to the next higher level.
Yes.
But the second and the third, they are still in the loop, because in the last minute, last second, the first person at the next contest, next level, he can withdraw. He may not show up. Because everything is in person now, at the area and up. So the last minute, that first person who you're waiting for him and he doesn't show up at the last minute on that stage.
And actually,
is in the loop. There's the second guy has to be ready. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually have a slide about that scenario about what happens if someone is late or does not show up.
Okay,
good. Do you want me to go into that?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me go back into my deck, and so we covered this. Let's move on. Come on. Here it is. So handling late contestants. Let's say that someone misses the contestant briefing. In that scenario, you want to have the alternate, like the second place winner of the club or the area, whatever. You want to have them attend just in case. Now, let's say that the primary contestant does arrive, but they're late. As long as they arrive before the contest Toastmaster is introduced, they can still compete, but they have to have their paperwork in order, and they have to waive the right to a briefing, because they missed it anyway. However, if that person arrives after the Toastmaster was introduced, they're disqualified.
And then their alternate would compete.
Exactly.
Right.
So you definitely want to, you remember in the past, during the pandemic, we actually had the second place winners, the alternates, attend the dry run just in case they had to come. And we invited them to everything because you never know, it could happen. Okay, so covered that. Yeah, let's talk about timers. I mentioned you before that you need 2 timers. One of them is the person who displays the cards, and they need to be physical cards because they're going to be in there. They're going to be in person. So you need to provide physical colored cards. And the other timer runs the stopwatch and completes the timer's report. So that's a lot different from previous years, because in the past, we would actually have both timers submit a report, but we're not going to do that anymore. Only one of them submits a paper, printed report to the chief judge. So it might take some practice, because what's going to happen is, since only one of them is running a stopwatch, with their phone or whatever, they're going to have to, the one of them that is displaying the cards is going to have to either be looking at that phone or clock too, or they're going to have to coordinate with each other. So I would recommend them sit down with each other and practice it a couple times. The second bullet point, it kind of goes without saying. You know that each card needs to be up all the way up until the next card. And the red card must remain displayed until the speaker stops speaking. Okay, you can't wave it around. You can't try to alert the speaker or give them some kind of warning or signal. All you do is you leave the red card up. And if they go over time, that's on them. And finally, as you probably already know, timing begins with the first verbal or nonverbal communication. So if they make a gesture, that you should start. I've already covered this.
And once again, in the previous slide, if they show up on the stage with the backpack, some prop, so that timing has started, right? They show up on the stage with a backpack or something in their hands, the timer's clock has started.
Yeah, unless if the prop was just sitting on the stage, that's a different story. But if they walk up to the stage with the prop in their hands and they hold it out to show people, then they've started. They've begun. You see what I mean? Like
They have to engage with the prop. Otherwise,
yeah,
like he's got a backpack on, it just might be his costume,
exactly.
his outfit. So he's got to engage with the prop.
He has to make a gesture with it or whatever. Or let's say he unzips the backpack to take something out. Well, that's he started. Okay.
So there's a question here. Kate asked, why does it say in the rule book that electronic signatures are allowed? I think that's an old rule.
Yeah, I saw that. That was where, like, on the timekeeper's report, it must be a situation where they failed to notice that was in there.
Yeah.
But both timers need to be physically at the contest. So they're using just a paper form, so there's no electronic signature. So does anyone have any questions on the fact that, every single official needs to be in person? There's no remote officials. There's no remote sergeant at arms or anything like that.
And there's no remote test speaker.
Exactly. That's a good point. Yeah. Because that would be pretty silly. You would have to have a giant screen on your wall that was good enough for people to, for the whole audience to see.
Right.
And yeah, it's not allowed. So it makes things a lot simple that everyone must be in person, but we understand there's a lot of remote and hybrid clubs. That's why they are allowed to do remote or hybrid contests. But at the area level on up, it must be in person. Okay. We already covered this. So if there's any disqualifications, the contest chair is the one who announces that to the audience, but they don't say who the person was. The chief judge may decide at their discretion to talk to that particular contestant to say, hey, I'm sorry, but you were disqualified. But it's not something that the audience is supposed to know. Okay, we already covered this. How about handling technical malfunctions? This is only a situation for clubs now. You remember in the past, at an area contest or division or district contest, if someone had a Wi-Fi interruption or an audio, malfunction, we would give them some time to correct that. Well, here's a description of that process, but it only applies to the club level because, beyond that level, everyone's in person, so you don't need to do this. But any questions on that? It just goes into detail about, if they are interrupted, they should fix the problem and they should resume their speech from the point at which it was interrupted. If they can't fix it, then you should move their speech to, maybe the last of the day or the next one, whatever you feel is appropriate. Here's another topic that gets a lot of questions.
Hans, I wanted to point out something else because I did do an in-person contest last year at the district level. And if there is an interruption of the speech because of some malfunction with the microphone or anything like that, then that contestant would probably get an extra 30 seconds on the timer to make a difference. You know what I'm talking about is if there's some sort of, when we need to really think about this because sometimes, we haven't done this in a long time. So there could be some mess ups.
Well, so you're saying if the speaker is
Interrupted.
up there on the
Yes.
stage and they're
Interrupted.
using a microphone to handle, so that they can be heard by a remote audience member or something?
Or even in a room if it's big enough. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So,
And you're saying if there's a problem,
yeah, that they would get extra time to make up for it.
well,
Yeah.
not only that, but they're given time, and the rule book does not
Address that.
the rule book only addresses the online speech contest where it says that they are given 10 minutes to fix the problem. They don't talk about the speech contest or the evaluation contest, but in the past we've used 5 minutes. So it's just a judgment call. I would say 5 to 10 minutes. But when they succeed in fixing the problem with their microphone or whatever, then yes, they will be granted 30 seconds of overtime. So let's say that they they don't finish until 7 minutes and 45 seconds. Well,
Uh-huh.
they still qualify because there's 30 seconds of grace.
Uh-huh. Right. So that's really important, and it's really important for the contest chairs and the timers to be aware of this, because sometimes, especially since this is the first time that we're back to in person, things can happen, and you just want to know what you do with that, what the protocol is.
Yeah, so maybe I shouldn't have skipped over this slide. So just want to make sure everyone understands that if there is a malfunction, whether it's the microphone or whatever, the timer should stop the clock. So like the chief judge or the contest chair should actually interrupt the contest verbally and say, hey, timers, please stop the clocks.
Right.
Contestant, can you please try to fix the problem, or we'll help you fix the problem. And then when it's fixed, then the timers, you know, will start the clock again, and the speaker should have resumed from the same point at which the
We're
problem
interrupted.
happened,
Right.
And I understand that might be difficult, but it shouldn't be hard for someone, either the speaker or the timer or an audience member, to say, hey, you were talking about XYZ when you were interrupted.
Mm-hmm.
Someone should be able to remember.
Mm-hmm.
The speaker should remember,
Right.
but it's at that point where they would restart.
Thank you.
Okay, what happens if there's a protest? And first of all, what is a protest? Well, actually, there are only three types of protests that can happen. And there are only two types of people who can lodge a protest: contestants and voting judges. So if they have a protest, they must verbally say, you gotta, you know, I have I found something in what the speaker did that I'm protesting. It's got to be lodged before the winners are announced. And let's give you an example here. Let's say that the protest is about speech originality. So maybe one of the judges thinks that um, half of the person's speech was just copied from a book. Or let's say that they noticed that the speaker made a remark about one of the other contestants. Well, that's not allowed. So that's another form of protest. If either of those forms of protest happened, the contestant must be given the opportunity to defend themselves verbally. So, the judges would meet, consider that information, and the majority decision of those judges holds. Now, there's a third type of protest, the second to last bullet point on this slide. That type of protest is about contestant eligibility. And if that happens, it's the contest chair who makes the decision, because the contest chair is the person who should have known about the eligibility, because they're the person who collects the eligibility forms for the contestants. So if a protest is lodged and a decision is made, the contestant must be notified of that decision before the contest is adjourned. Any questions about that? I guess it goes without saying that a simple audience member cannot lodge a protest. Must be a contestant or a judge. Awards and certificates. I showed you that download kit. These certificates are in it. So for first, second, third place, it also has certificates for your volunteers, the participation certificates. Those you can print out. If you want to get fancy with it, you can print it out on, heavier paper or colored paper. Trophies and medals, we already covered that. Sally's going to be taking care of that. So yeah, we covered that part. Okay, so in the appendix was just information that, like about the test speaker. I think we already covered this in previous presentations, so I wasn't really, unless anyone has any questions about this, I really wasn't going to cover it today. Other than that, that's what I wanted to cover today. What kind of questions do we have today? Any questions? I mean, one of the most complicated issues that tends to be very confusing is, who can be a judge and how many do I need? Where can I get them, etc. Or if you're an area director, you're having problems finding people from within your area. Can you get them from outside? And the answer is yes.
Hans, we covered previously about multiple clubs having the there is a term for that. The area contest is where you go to a physical place. And several clubs, they hold the meeting together. So that you can have, but there might be a financial thing involved where you have to rent a place, or it can be a church building, church auditorium, library, old age home. Yeah, we covered that, but there must be something the clubs have to work together to figure out a common ground where they can do a combined area contest.
So I guess one of the questions we might want to ask is, are there any areas that are still struggling with finding a place to hold their contest? They're coming up first, I guess, in February and March. Are all the area directors that are here, have you found a location?
Very good question.
So I'm assuming the silence means you've all got a place.
Yeah, we do. I'm from Division F, and we are having a combined area contest, and we do have a place.
Excellent, excellent.
Something that I don't think we covered, because I don't know if it has actually happened in the past, but does anyone recall a 3-area contest?
Yeah, that's what we are having this time.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were just having a dual one. So you're having
3 areas.
all
yes.
3 on the same night? Is it just like 1 or 2 contestants each, or what do you think it'll be?
At this point, we don't know how many are contesting from each of the clubs.
Of course not.
Yeah, they're just planning their club contests.
But
So
I
last
actually,
time, we had a combined area contest for 3 areas. So we are hoping to do the same this time. And
Last
we
year,
do have the venue reserved for 4.5 hours. So we are hoping we'll be able to complete them.
so I did.
Wow, 4 hours? Okay.
Well, just in case, but you
Yeah,
could probably reduce it once you know how many contestants you have.
Sure.
I participated in a contest back east where I guess it was a test speaker, and they were 3 area, and they only had 1 contestant in each area. But the area, if you only have 1 contestant, you still have to carry on the contest, and they have to qualify. That is, they have to give their speech in the right amount of time.
Yeah.
So you even if you only have 1 contestant, you still have to run your contest for the area and above.
Exactly. So yeah, if there's only 1, let's say that you have this 3 area contest and one of the areas only has 1, evaluator, for example. Well, you still have to you still have to collect ballots. You still have to
Yes.
have judges and all that. And you just perform a kind of I don't know what the word is, a perfunctory ballot counting process. Well, there's only 1 person, so they're already the winner.
Yeah, probably goes pretty quick.
Yeah. But you still have to do that before moving to the other area. You can't
right.
take 1 person from one area and put them in the same lineup with the other speakers.
No, we are going to separate. Yeah, first we'll do it.
You have to collect ballots between each area. Or
and then we'll have the speech contest
Right,
first,
between
followed
each.
by the evaluation contest for all the 3 areas. Yeah. And I do have a question. So is it okay if we give like a gifts or some kind of gift cards to judges, or is that allowed to judges or all the functionary roles?
We can't give gift cards.
Okay.
We can give gifts, but we can't give gift cards. That came out, I don't know, a couple of years ago. That and it's not a rule just of Toastmasters. It is a nonprofit rule. You can't give anything that can be construed as money.
Okay.
If you give us, sorry, 1 second, Michelle, 1 second. If you give a gift card to a judge, you are in a way giving that person away, right? Means people will come to know only 1 or 2 persons in the whole thing just to know the judges, right? But if
No,
you give
it's
a
going to
you
be
have to
after
do it
the contest.
After the contest,
After the contest,
but
yeah.
that's not the reason. The reason is that it's construed as money. So you
Okay.
can give them a gift, you can give them a box of tea, you can give them, I don't know, I've
chocolates.
Chocolates. Yeah, that's a good one. Flowers, whatever.
Yeah.
A little plant, bag of
But
Cheetos.
like Ananda was saying, if they're a judge, you should just find an opportunity to give it to them discreetly, so that
Right.
because if you don't want people to know who they are, and that brings up another.
Certainly notice if they're holding their ballot up in the air, that they're going to notice who the judges are.
That's right. I forgot about that. You're right. Well, here's another. That brings up another point: is that after the contest chair is notified of the winners, and then they announce the winners and all that, the contest is concluded, all of those paper forms need to be thrown out. So you don't want to leave those ballots or tabulation forms lying around. Just throw them out.
And probably not there.
Because the result the result is final. Okay.
Hans, I had a question here. Once the judges have finalized, they have done their work, do they take the paper up and show it for the chief judge, or the chief judge knows who the judges are? The chief judge can go to the judge and pick up the paper, so that you're not dangling something in the air. Oh, I'm here, I'm ready, please come and collect. You don't bring
Well,
their,
it's the ballot counters who, so you would have at least two ballot counters and they would walk through the audience to collect them. Right? So you could, I've seen some contests do it a different way where they put all the judges in the back so that people don't see them, but I think that's kind of silly. I would prefer having the judges up front so that they can actually really get a good idea of what the speaker is doing. And the fact that the rest of the audience will be able to see who those judges are, I'm not worried about that. Um, that's the way it was before the pandemic, so there's nothing we can do about that. So I would just recommend putting them in the front row, and that would make it easier for the ballot counters to go fetch their ballots because they'd be all in the same row. So put them up in the same front row as where the timers are. That's my recommendation there. Any questions on that? I noticed in the chat that and by the way, I haven't been doing a good job of monitoring the chat, but I noticed Kate had a suggestion about um, offering a gift to a judge as a youth leadership um, or no, she was a judge in a youth leadership contest, and they offered her a gift. She turned it down because it kind of, it makes sense because you don't want other people to know that a judge received a gift because then you could be saying like, oh, well, they gave that person a gift because they voted the way they wanted her to vote, you know? So it's just not, if you do anything like that, you got to make sure it's very, very discreet. Definitely get a gift for your test speaker though. That's very important because they had to drive from probably the furthest away from anyone because they're probably not even from that area or division.
Yeah, definitely we'll plan for that.
Um, and speaking of test speakers, we mentioned this before in the previous training, but you want to pick someone who most of your club members or area members have not seen before, or at least, if they have, then it's a totally different speech. It's a new speech that they haven't heard of before. But ideally, it would be a totally, alien person to them, like someone from a different division. Because, if one of the evaluators has already seen that person before, then they kind of have a little advantage. All right. Okay. Another question from Kate about certificates. Okay, so yes, you can provide a participation certificate or something like that to the judges. Um, the ultimate way to make it discreet, of course, is to just email that certificate to them, as well as, maybe a personal note. Um, but if you wanted to print out the hard copy of it, you just better deliver it to them in a very discreet way so that no one else sees you doing it. Yeah, You could even just mail it to them. Let's go through the chat. What else do we got? Kate pointed out that in the rule book, the timing device, whether it's a phone or a stopwatch, it cannot be obvious to the audience. So let's say it's a phone, for example. You need to lay it flat on the table so that no one else can see it. Because we don't want people distracted by it. Is that what you were getting at, Kate?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I think, you've seen in some clubs, they have these little rectangle or some other device that shows red, green, yellow, so that just the speaker can see it. Whereas if you take the cards and hold them up, then that becomes obvious to judges that somebody's in the red zone or, so I think that's why they put that in the rule book this year.
Oh, so when you're
you can
saying,
hold the red card like this. You can have the stopwatch or your phone on the table. That's one thing, but to hold up the card so that people can see that somebody went from yellow to red to whatever, it just calls attention to that, as opposed to holding the red or the yellow card right in front of you. I suppose you could do it that way, or just borrow one of those devices from a club that has one.
oh, okay. So when you say timing device, you're talking about the cards.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying, yeah, I
I mean,
didn't know
some
that.
people use cards, but
You're saying that the card should be held up in a way that no one else can see it.
yeah,
Ideally,
it doesn't
it'd be
make, yeah.
difficult, but
Yeah, I mean, if you only have cards, it's one thing, but I would hold them because only the speaker needs to see the card. No one else needs to see it. You know what I mean? So you don't have to hold it up in the air or anything. You could just,
you could kind of curl the edges so no one else sees it.
no, I'm just saying that you would just hold it so that the speaker can see it. If you train the speakers, the
Yeah.
contestants before the contest begins, here's the speaking area, here's where the timer is, this is what you should look for, then I think they'll get it. I don't think you don't want to hide the timing device, whether it's an equipment thing or a card, but I think it's important not to fling it around or raise it up high.
Has anyone seen?
I'm guessing that's why they put it in there. I don't know why else they would have put it in there.
Okay, I guess I missed that part in there. But that brings up another point. Has anyone seen someone using a device other than a card? Like, have you seen lights or some
they
sort
sell
of?
them in Toastmasters shop. They're just little rectangular things, and you just turn it from red to green to yellow or whatever, red, the other way around, green, yellow, red.
Mhm.
So I have something to
device.
send. I have something to say about those devices. I was in a contest once, and they had to be at the very, very end of the first row in order to plug it in. And because of where I was speaking, I never saw that because I was never looking that far over. So
like
it's
you're
tricky.
saying. Yeah, the devices they sell now are batteries. You got to make sure the batteries are okay. Or you can use an iPad that has the Toastmasters timing on it as well, that automatically changes colors when the timing changes.
So in that particular case, it would be automatic, and the person holding that up would not even need to work with the other timer. I mean,
Well, I don't know. I like to see the stopwatch between the two timers,
mhm.
and and that way they're both sitting together. If for some reason there's a failure or something, but I think if you just have the stopwatch between you and then you changing the colors, I think that's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you could have an iPad that's sitting on most of the time they're sitting on a rack or a keypad or something that,
Mhm.
and then it just automatically changes if you're using the Toastmasters or the timing software. There's a few of them out there. But the point is that whoever the contestants are, that they know where the timer is and what to look for.
Mhm.
Somebody may be thinking they're going to be looking for cards, and then it turns out to be a device like what you was just pointed out. You got to position them at the right place in the room where everybody can see it or the speakers can see it.
Yep. I remember one of the clubs I'm in, someone made a custom wood device with 3 colored light bulbs in it, and each light bulb had its own switch. It was really elaborate, but you definitely you don't want to use something that would be distracting to the audience. So if it's really big and it makes noise, I would not use it. Just my opinion. But there's
All right.
really there's no it's almost anything goes. It just so but most clubs, most areas, clubs, divisions use just paper cards. I would recommend laminating them or putting them in a clear plastic sleeve so that they don't get torn up or whatever.
Also, I think you're supposed to put either the word or the letter R, G, and Y on them for the people that are colorblind.
Oh wow, that's a good, yeah, like on Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an accommodation thing. I believe it was recommended.
Very cool. Okay.
Question on speaking order, Hans, for a totally in-person contest. In the past, we've had those contestants draw numbers. They participate, and then we've also had it assigned without the contestants participating and assigning speaker order.
Yeah.
Do you recommend one of those, or is there a best way to do it that's fair?
Well, the contest chair is responsible for it, and typically if it's an in-person contest, I've seen them drawing straws, or
Yeah.
just slips of paper, whoever get the shortest one or whatever. It because it's something that was typically done, before the pandemic. It was typically done on the night of the contest, so you did not have time to modify the agenda after finding those results. Instead, the agenda or whatever, it would just have blank spaces, and then people would write the name, like the contest chair or the Toastmaster would announce what the order is, and everyone would write them on the agenda. Okay.
You're saying, though, the contestants should be participating in the however
process.
method, right, the process. It shouldn't be done behind the scenes by the contest chair.
I mean, that's what I recommend, because
Yeah.
you don't want to you don't want anyone to perceive there might be favoritism or something like
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
If you're a committee chair, you're right. The fall kickoff would be counted too. We'll make sure we put that in.
I was just curious how many committee chairs there are.
Well,
Was that a question about contest committee, or? Or I guess
I
someone
think
was on.
somebody was unmuted.
Yeah, on the phone with someone else. Kate says, I think it would be okay to do contestant briefings and the speaking order draw ahead of time so that you have the speaking order on the agenda. If you have you could do the contestant briefing in a Zoom call the night before. That's a possibility. I mean, just like during the pandemic, we would have a dry run on Zoom. And there's nothing wrong with doing that on Zoom before an in-person contest.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks. I like keeping it simple and fair. So probably go with the contestants back to the fishbowl and the little numbers in the bowl.
Yeah, but like Kate said, if you do want a clean looking agenda, like a printed agenda that already has the correct speaking order on it, then you should do it the night before.
But
Got
I
it.
remember the district level, I remember those agendas, and they always had blank spaces and you filled them in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's either way, whatever works for you, whatever your preference.
Yeah.
And my personal opinion is, if I'm a contestant, I want everything to be transparent, especially for something like that. So I guess it's just to make it fair, and so there's no issues.
You mean so that everyone else can see what happened, or?
Yeah, so the contestants know that the order was arrived at fairly because they participated.
Yeah. They were either there or they physically drew straws or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you're going to do it the night before or the day before on Zoom, then I would recommend doing a screen share with one of those randomizers.
Or that wheel of fortune.
So that everyone can see that you didn't just make it up out of you didn't favor anyone. You actually used a legitimate process,
Right. That's a good point. Thanks.
So I do have a question regarding the seating. Should all the audience members be seated? Because there might be limited seating in the community room that we have booked.
Should all the audience members, instead of standing, or?
Is standing allowed, or?
Yeah, there's no problem with that. I would definitely give the most preferential treatment to your judges and timers. And, they should take the front row probably. And beyond that, anything goes. Like, I definitely look out for people who need accommodations. You don't want to, I don't know. Beyond the judges and timers, there's no one, I guess it'd be nice if the ballot counters could sit down as well, but they don't have to. They could stand. I would prefer an audience member sit down instead of a ballot counter. It's just my opinion.
Okay.
1 second, Hans, about Sri's question. Can they have a reserved seating, put up some reservation signs in the room so that only the chosen people can sit there?
Oh,
yeah, I think that will be a good idea to have reservation for the functionary roles. And
yeah. I definitely, so if you have, 5 or 6 judges and 2 timers, that's enough to fill the front row. So I would definitely use some kind of material or paper or sign to block those off.
And the others would be just first come, first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would recommend, telling your ballot counters and your sergeant of arms to stand if they can, because I think that should go with the role that, you're inviting guests and audience members to attend. You should give them a seat if possible.
Okay.
Hey, Hans, 1 second, about Sri, she just mentioned that first come basis. Once the event starts, you cannot let anybody come in. Once the speaker starts speaking, so it's not that
we have to close the doors. Okay.
You have to close the door. It's not that they're coming to a party. You have to come in and enter within 2 minutes. So that it's not that somebody comes 15 minutes late and walks in. It's nothing like that. I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think they can come in between speakers, right? They can still be let in after the first speaker speaks.
Yeah. So that's what the sergeant of arms is responsible to use their discretion and say, okay, the first person is done. Everyone is finished clapping. Okay, you can go in now. Something like that.
So I think it would be a good idea to have like a 5 minutes break between each area, so that if some of the audience who want to just see that area can leave during that time.
And Sri, 1 second, Hans. I think that is a good, because typically you will be giving, I think, 10 minutes, because people may want a bathroom break, or some bio break, So they
Yeah.
will, yeah.
Well, you definitely want to include that depending on what the timing is on your meeting, because you have to give bio breaks.
Mhm. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Looking through the chat, I think we've covered everything. Yeah. So again, this was the third session in our contest training for this year, and the fourth one will handle walking you through the entire script, going through the actual events that happen on the contest day, like, what does the Sergeant of Arms do? What is, how the different roles hand off and what they actually say in the script. So, these first three trainings were more strategic in nature, but yeah, the fourth one will be going through the actual script. Any other questions or issues that people have been having? We already covered getting the physical locations. A couple of you commented on that. Anything else that someone?
You might want to mention when the next contest training is.
Oh yeah, February 3rd, which is on a Monday night. Yeah, Monday night, same time, 6:00. And this particular session tonight will be put on YouTube probably tomorrow. And I'll also send the deck out to everyone. Let's see. I have a list of everyone who registered. If there's anyone who's attending tonight that did not register on the website, please let me know so I can get your email address as well.
Hans, wouldn't it make sense to send the link out to everybody who might benefit from getting a link to the video training? Like all the area and division leaders,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
and
Yeah, I guess I
even
could. I guess I could send an email to just all the directors saying, I know not all of you could attend tonight, but here's the
right,
deck and here's the video.
absolutely want to get it out to everybody.
Was there anyone here tonight that is not a area director, division director, let's say maybe a club officer of some kind? I see. Okay, I see one email address in the chat. I'll copy that. But yeah, other than that, I think we're good to go. What do you think, Michelle and Ananda?
I think you did a great job, Hans. I think we really covered all kinds of esoteric things that aren't usually covered. I think we did a great job.
Yeah, just trying to fill the time,
This was wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, really excellent.
Thank you. Okay. Well, look for that material tomorrow when I get the video uploaded and all that stuff. And like I said, the deck will contain those links that I mentioned so that you can download all those materials and start printing them out. It's really important that you print out. Well, let me clarify. You should print out all the forms that are actually brought to the contest day, but the other forms can be simply emailed to the relevant people. And I'm talking specifically about the eligibility forms. You can simply email the contestant eligibility and the judge eligibility forms to those people, and then they can email them back to you or print them out and bring it to you. But all the other forms you should definitely print out.